Perfect. All right, so we are once again here in our Try Presto Stats test environment, and I have both baseball and softball games set up. We're going to go through both, look at both. The softwares do look and function differently, just for the few differences between the two games, but for the most part, you know, the sequences, setting starters, and everything like that is the exact same across both sports in the Presto Stats environment. So our event is scheduled here as usual. You click on the date and time in game day, and our Launch Presto Stats button is available here on the right. So we'll go ahead and open our software. This is for a baseball game. And first thing you'll be prompted with, once again, is the live scoring score sheet entry method. Live scoring is your standard play-by-play entry method where you're going to be putting in every play sequence that happens. Score sheet entry would be used after if you're usually used for doing stats after a game, if you're doing stats off a scorebook from a coach or something. If there's an away game situation where you know, a non-NAIA school might be not able to record stats or provide a stat file, you can always do the score sheet entry to at least create a box score for your own team, and that allows you to enter each player's stat line by line, basically just putting in so-and-so had 3 hits, a run scored, something like that. So for today's demo purposes, we'll be going through the live scoring entry method. And you'll always be prompted there. And then the next item is the 2 pregame setup items. Enter the missing location. So clicking that edit button, it takes you to the setup tab. And under here, we'll just put in the location. There's other items you can fill out, and this can be done at this page under setup, can be accessed at any time before, during, or after the games. You can always come back and add stuff later if you want to add in your umpires, put in the name of the score for the game. The team IDs allow you to customize the team name. If you have 2 schools with very similar names, it's probably worth customizing those team IDs just to make them a little separate. Down at the bottom, if you're playing a 7-inning game, you can go ahead and change the scheduled innings from 9 to 7. If you are doing a doubleheader, you can mark the doubleheader game 1 and 2 in the box score. That's optional, but it's just the availability is there to do so. And a few other random toggles. If for some reason there's no DH, you can turn that off. If the home team is going to be batting first for any reason, you can always mark them as yes. So that's going to be, again, that's just an instance where the event is scheduled, your traditional home and away, but for whatever reason, you know, the home team, it's going to be flipped and they're going to be batting first. They're still going to be listed as the home team in the box score, stuff like that. Kind of a weird instance, rare situation, but if that does occur, you can always toggle that here. And then the night game, again, just a designation to use in the box score. So now that we have this set up, we'll save. You'll see the OK for game setup. Next is our roster manager to set our starters. So we'll click edit. And once again, with Presto Sports and the Presto Stat software, any roster that's entered into the system by a school will automatically be carried into the stat software for both the home and away teams. So again, that's the importance, why it's important to get your roster into Presto so that it's available for when your team's on the road, so that the home team has access to your roster to run stats. So we have both rosters in here for both teams. So we'll go ahead and set starting lineups. And you'll see in the position field, you can either enter the numerical field position. So for our second baseman, although I skipped first baseman, so 3 for your first baseman, or as you can see, you can just pick from the list. So you could even type out 2B and for your second baseman. So I'll just keep going down the list here. And now we'll set the starters for the other team. And this, you know, this is when you're setting starting lineups, obviously your pitcher can bat, and that, you know, the 10th spot can be left blank. All right. In softball, obviously that's your defensive flex position. So Same exact, and I'll show you, I already have the softball lineup set. I'll show you how that can look when we get over to that game. Save. So now we have our starting 9 in for both teams. And as you'll see, we're ready to begin entering play sequences. So you have the baseball field diagram over here, and that's kind of where you're going to be doing the stats entry work. So if we'll just click in this box here, and that's where you're going to be typing in the sequence for our batter here, Lind. You'll see the name there for the batter. Otherwise, the black boxes, that's all the defensive positioning. And that allows for quick substitutions. We'll get to that in a second, but otherwise, here's your pitch window for this first batter. You can either use this input pitches button down here, or like all Presto stat softwares, this is designed around stat crew key entry. So if we just do P and enter, the pitch sequence input window will come up. And if you want to track pitches, if your coach has asked you to track pitches or anything for starting pitchers, this is an easy way to go ahead and do that. So say a couple balls, strike, fouled one off, fouled a couple off, and then we'll put one in play here. And then you'll see when you hit the P to put in play, it automatically kicks you back to the window here, and you can begin, you can just type in the entry here. So we'll just say single through the right side for our leadoff hitter, and you'll see that's what comes up here in our play-by-play on the right.
Hey, Neil. We had a quick question here, which I think you might have just answered, but just to make sure we've got it clear here for them. And there's a question: is there a way we can get off the pitch-by-pitch screen without clearing the pitches?
Yeah. So if we open that up and do a ball here, swing, and I believe if we hit escape, and it'll kick you back to the roster tab because it's assuming you might want to make a substitution. So anytime you hit the escape, it'll do that. And I believe if we go back into it, it should, it doesn't look like it retains the pitch count, actually. So that might be something we'll have to look at a little further there to make sure we get that.
Neil, that was a question that I asked because I remembered I used this program last year. And whenever I had to enter a wild pitch, I would have to put it in play, then enter the wild pitch, and then go green and then clear the last thing so that it wouldn't kill the pitch count for the batter. So I think that that's an important thing to add, because that could get super annoying if you have to re-enter the count every single time you hit a.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. It makes sense there. Yeah, that's something we'll have to obviously take a look at. Why that's not sticking there. I know it had been at one point, so I'm not sure what would have changed there. But so we'll go ahead and get back here to another ball in play. We'll go ahead and enter double play, standard 643 GDP. Your the base runner that's out on the play, you'll give them an X, and we'll see the sequence right here. Grounded in double play. If you need to make an edit to that play, if it was actually the third baseman, not the shortstop, or if it was a second baseman or shortstop, however you would need to make an edit, you can always click the edit button here, edit that play, and we'll just say it was actually the third baseman that started the double play. Save it. Play was edited successfully, and now our play-by-play correctly reads it third to second to first on that play. And from here, it's just pretty standard baseball entry. So we'll give a strikeout here, and next inning, go ahead and move on. And I'm just going to go through some random sequences here. Katie, if there's any questions about different play inputs or anything like that, feel free to chime in with some of those. But otherwise, we'll give a double to right center, and see it puts the runner on second base just like that. If we'll say that they were caught stealing, so trying to steal 3-5, caught stealing, out at third there. Fly 9.
A question came in to me real quick. Is there any do you guys have any sort of a cheat sheet or anything like that, just with some of the codes and everything?
Yeah, so in the help button here, and this is for all of our softwares. Right now, the links are not working, but just because we changed them around where they are on our back end, so we're working to get those fixed. But here are the links to the cheat sheet under the help button here and sample situations. So if anyone ever needs these, and these link to our help center, just general instructions for Presto stats for if you ever have any questions about importing rosters, game setup, stuff like that. That stuff can always be found under the help button. Let's just go ahead and enter a home run here to left center, get a run on the board. And you'll see now that we have a run on the board, so there's a team technically has the lead. As soon as that happens, that input pitching decisions button becomes available. That's more useful, obviously, at the end of the game when you need to put in your pitching decisions. But when you start the game, it's going to be grayed out. And if there's ever a tie game, it'll be grayed out. But as soon as a team has a lead, you are technically able to wrap up the game and do a pitching decision. So if a game is scheduled for 9 innings, obviously, some rain comes in or whatever, and it has to be called after 6 or 7, it's going to be considered an official game. Don't worry about going to the game setup and changing the scheduled innings or anything like that. You can end a game early and get it finalized without any issues coming into play there. Let's go ahead and get another guy on base here.
So while you're entering that play, we did have a question about, as we're talking about some of the codes of how to input some of this stuff, if you enter an incorrect code, is there some kind of warning that pops up in order for you to correct that before it goes through?
Yeah, so if I wanted to enter a double play like we did earlier where it was the defensive positioning, so 6-4-3 space GDP, if you entered it flipped, you'll get this message right here. Basically, our system saying, hey, that's not a valid sequence. And you'll see right there, it'll immediately give you links to our cheat sheet and sample plays, just as an easy way to confirm what you're actually working on. And so there's no way to input an incorrect play sequence. If that makes sense. So I wanted to put this base runner on here just to show an interference call. So if this player is called out on interference for any reason, so we'll say they were maybe trying to steal second or something, you'll have to have a put out on a play like that. So I would give it to wherever the interference occurred, so at second base. So we'll give the second baseman an unassisted put out, INT, and that'll end the inning. But you'll see over here on the left, out at second, unassisted on an interference play. And we'll go to the next inning there. Go ahead and do a double down the right field line. So again, baseball, softball entry, pretty simple and straightforward. The keystrokes mirror Stat Crew, DAX stats, pretty much any stat software, baseball, softball, stat. Keystroke entry is going to be straightforward across the board. There's obviously going to be some weird situations here and there where oddities come up, but for the most part, the workflow is pretty similar and straightforward across the board. So we can say hit by pitch here, get that guy on there. Let's go ahead and throw in an error here, just to since we already have base runners on too, just to show what that would look like. So we'll just say error on the first baseman on the fielding there. So nobody got home on that play. So you'll see right there, first, player reached on first, fielding error. So now on our next input here, if somebody were to score, so the guy on third is going to score on this play, we'll just move everybody up a base. And as soon as we do that, the system will prompt you to ask if it's an earned run. It's going to do that as soon as an error is entered in an inning. It's going to prompt you for every run that's scored after that in the inning, whether or not it's earned or not. So in this case, it would have been an earned run because the player reached the pitcher gave up a double to that leadoff hitter. So we'll go ahead and just say earned run, and the next prompt will be for the RBI. So we'll give them the RBI there. So now, as we go throughout the rest of the inning, it's going to continue to prompt for the same thing. So let's say here, fielder's choice, they were out at second. Everybody else moves up a bag. And again, it'll prompt you earned run, yes or no. And Oni was hit by the pitch. So again, this is something we're just going to give him the earned run there. Yes. So now we have our runners here. But if, at any point you decide, maybe that, was an unearned run, you can always come back, edit your play sequence, add a UE. Oh, not what I wanted to do. Add a UE at the end there and save it. And now our play has been edited, and we can see right here the runner scored unearned. With all Presto stat softwares, if you need to make an edit further back in the game, you can always click, come into your recent plays, scroll down to full play-by-play, and again, go back to any points. If you need to go back an inning or anything like that, you can always come back in here, see a longer stretch of text for the play sequence laid out there, and any edits you need to make. Again, you can use the edit button here. You'll see right there as I do that as well, if you miss a play. So if you miss a substitution, for example, and I'm going to get into some substitutions here in a second. But if you miss a substitution or a play for any reason, and you need to get it back in the correct sequence order, you can always click edit, and there will be the option to add a play before or after. And when you do one before, it'll take you to the field sequence where you can input whatever that play missed sequence might have been. So even if we're right here and we missed a substitution, you could still go into the rosters and change lineup, and it would insert it at that moment. So you can see it's, even if we switched over different tabs, it's still in this inserting play window until you click save or cancel. So let's go ahead and let's just put in a pinch hitter here. There's two ways to handle substitutions in Presto Stats. On the field diagram itself, at any point you can click on a player's name. So if you need to make a defensive substitution in the middle of an inning for any reason, you can always just click on a name and it'll pull up a list of everybody on the roster, and you can go down and find that person and make the substitution. Same with our players on offense. So we're going to pull out the batter here. So just click their name and you'll see that automatically comes up pinch hitter. And let's just scroll down, get somebody that hadn't been in. 28 is now our pinch hitter, and at the top of the play-by-play, it's going to show that. And we're just going to go ahead and end this inning. So strikeout and pop up. So as soon as we end that inning and move on to the next, the system will flag and say, hey, you're missing a player in right field because that's where that pinch hitter came in to replace the right fielder. Okay. And it's going to take you right to your lineup tab under the rosters. We'll see our pinch hitter here. You can change it. So if Macaulay's not going to stay in the game to play defense, you can change who that person is, or just simply assign them the defensive position, save it. And now you'll see Macaulay's now in right field officially, and we're ready to start the next half of the inning there. The other way to make substitutions is by going to the rosters tab itself. So let's go ahead and make a pitching change. Come into our roster here, and we'll click change lineup, and you'll see right here is our full lineup that was put in at the start of the game. And again, this is where you can make any change through here. It doesn't just have to be a pitching change. All changes can be made either way. But let's just go ahead and find somebody else to pitch. So we'll say Lopez is coming in to pitch, save. Lopez is now our pitcher, and you'll see Lopez in the middle there, ready to pitch. So now as we move forward with this inning, there'll be the pitcher receiving stats moving forward here. Obviously, pitching changes, position changes can be made at any point throughout the game in the middle of an inning or anything like that.
So we've got a situational question for you.
Okay.
When we get to extra innings, does it automatically place a runner on second, or is that a manual input?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and that is a manual input. So the sequence to do it is a very unique one. And like all Presto stat softwares, we mirrored our entries off of StatCrew, kind of the basis for the original stats entry. So it's a weird sequence. It's the only one they made that is this way. But this is how it's done. So it's, I have it pulled up here. Yeah, so it's the R:, and then you're going to put the, I believe this is where you put in their batting order number. So not their uniform number, but the order that they are in the batting order. So in this sequence, since the fifth guy in the order starting, the fourth batter would be the guy to place on second. So 4, and then a comma, and then the number for the base you want to put them on. So 2, like that, and hit enter, and it places that runner on second base. So if you ever need to do that, if you ever need to place a runner on any base, you can use that input. But for the extra inning rules in softball, and I don't know if any college baseball has adopted that as well, but if you need to do that, that's how you can place a runner on second right there. So the big weird oddity in that is using the person's batting order number and not their uniform number. So that's the only situation input that I can think of that uses that. So just something to keep in mind there when entering that.
We also have a question about whether in softball it's listed as DP or DH.
Yeah, so I have a softball game. I'm going to get into that one here in a second. And in fact, let's just go ahead and pull that up here. We can kind of hop between the two as we need. I already have the starters in for softball so that we could get right in some inputs. One thing I'll show now that we're in our softball game here is that if we come to, this would work, for baseball, though, it's not really a thing in baseball. I think you could still set it that way. Basically, to avoid any issues with our system not fully understanding double switches, re-entry, and things like that, we do not have any limitations, to my knowledge, on re-entry and roster adjustments like that. So you have full flexibility to do re-entry, use your flex, and things like that. Because I know in softball, roster adjustments like that can get a bit tricky and on the fly. So just to show an example of it, on this team here, I have, the pitcher leading off, your DP batting 6, and your shortstop as your defensive flex, just to kind of show that it can be set up that way. And again, as changes are needed positionally throughout the game, if at any point you can make re-entry plays. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Anything like that. So, and as you can see right there in the starting lineup, yes, they are listed as DP in softball to answer that question.
And are there any roster limits?
So right now we do have 40-man roster limits on baseball and softball. That is obviously has caused some pains as college baseball teams just continue to grow and grow and grow in size. We are planning to have that lifted. I believe it's going to be lifted up to football, which is around 100, and maybe it's going to be 60. I'm not sure, but either way, it is going to be raised above the 40 limit before the start of the spring seasons, just because that has caused issues. The reason it was in place was in the past, again, just to keep compliance with Stat Crew, where they had the 40-man limit, and any file with more would cause issues. As the industry moves past Stat Crew, we are as well. So that is one that we are working and actively to get adjusted and changed before the start of the spring seasons. Any other questions there, Katie?
So we do have a couple that just came in. Does the program have the ability to track location of hits, kind of like a spread chart?
So we do not have that at this time. It's really, no, we do not.
The next question we have is, can you make multiple defensive substitutions from the field diagram alone? Perhaps even a sub where one fielder moves over and another player enters in a different spot of the player he or she is replacing.
So from the field diagram, each substitution is kind of their own individual substitution. So, we'll say, so we'll make it kind of what they're referring to. Probably more happens in the outfield than anything else, or if like a pitch, somebody needs to come in and pitch. But we'll just go ahead and move take our left fielder out and put in this person here. But then we will, yeah, you can see right here, they recommend going right to the change lineup tab to make a double switch. But and it's going to shift us right there, apparently. Okay. Not sure why. I guess it's probably just because it's the start of the game. It probably assumes you're making a double switch there. Let's just try this now. So we'll put in 20 here. I'm not sure why it keeps shifting there, but either way, if we need to move 18 into center field, that's what I was going to do there. So we'll say 20 is coming into left field and 18 is going into center. And we save that. Where else is Bermuda? Oh, there, our catcher. save. So made quite a few different changes around there because of the numbers, but yeah, I would do any roster changes. Again, I always recommend using the rosters change lineup tab. People find the field diagram to be a bit quicker, but either way, it's probably going to direct you. It seems to want to direct you over here to the rosters tab to make those changes.
So another substitution question here for you. Are you forced to either throw a pitch or enter a play before making a substitution? The concern behind this is more in softball, where some coaches start a game with both a DP and a pitcher in the lineup, but then at the plate meeting, make a sub where the DP actually ends up throwing the first pitch.
Yeah, and that's, yes, you can do that. You know, we could have made any of those substitutions before I entered that strikeout. You can make any substitutions at any point in the game. So those weird softball roster things that coaches seem to do, you can do. Again, that's where we don't really have to avoid running into issues. That we really lifted all the restrictions on roster flexibility for baseball and softball.
So we have a situational one here, wanting to see obstruction and catcher's interference, like how to enter those.
Yeah, so catcher interference, you can just enter CI here, and I believe, yeah, and it's just a matter of CI, and it'll automatically move that person to second base there, or to first base, put them on base there. And what was the
obstruction?
I guess I'm not quite following what they mean by an obstruction. Just like batter interference. I'm not quite sure.
Let's see here.
Obstruction is where the fielder gets in the way of a runner advancing.
Yeah, and I guess that's where, from like a statistical entry mindset, I guess I'm not quite sure. You know, if you needed to, you know, I guess you'd mark it as an error, if anything, at that point. I'm not, you know, I'm not quite sure from a statistical angle how you would enter that, but I would just assume it would just be entered as an error. Like, so example, if this runner was headed to second, and the second baseman interfered with them, I guess you could enter it as an error on the second baseman. I'm not quite sure.
I'm pretty sure if you hit OBS, I'm pretty sure if you put OBS, it'll do obstruction.
It's just OB. It's the same as stat crew. But you have to advance the runner. Yeah. So you'd have to go like, no, it would be plus OB, but technically since it's also an error, you would charge. So it would be like E5 OB.
Okay. So there we go.
It's just noting that it's just a note thing to make sure OB's in there. Obstruction's in there.
The other one I was going to mention, it will probably come up as a question too. Let's just go ahead and put this guy on. Move them up a base. If you have a runner leave early in softball, that requires kind of like the interference. That requires a put out. So 3U RLE, and you'll see right there, out at first, runner left early.
So one more question here. Are there any instances that won't allow you to simply go back and change a play? For example, in DAC sets, there are instances that won't allow you to edit without deleting the plays up to that point.
Yeah, I mean, there shouldn't be any situations like that in Presto stats. Pretty much every play is editable. You know, even substitutions. Well, yeah, I guess substitutions would be the one. But any play entry, you know, you can always edit anything like that. There shouldn't be any limitations on items like that. All right. I guess I'll start, you know, enter some more play sequences and stuff here. We'll go through some end game wrap up. There's not a lot to dive into and go over here in baseball, softball, because again, it's pretty straightforward, just a matter of knowing your keystrokes more than anything else. So one thing, our Presto Stats, try Presto Stats test environment is always open and available to users. If you haven't gotten access to it yet, let us know and we can share that access with you, and you can come in here and mess around with it, teach yourself, teach your student workers or anybody like that that you might need to get up to speed on things like this. But in fact, we already have a lead in this game here, so let's just go ahead and wrap this game up. So we'll just pretend it's for some reason ending here partway through the start of the bottom of the second, it looks like. So if you did need to wrap up this game at this point, you can just do your complete game information. The one thing to note for baseball, softball is you want to enter a total time at the end of the game. That ensures the box score gets marked as final. So, if your game takes 2.5 hours, just put your 2:30 in there and save it. And now that would be marked as final in the box score. It's obviously not a required field, because then it would be, we can't have a required field that's not required to do before game. So it's an optional yet required field, if that makes sense. Once that's done, and then your input pitching decisions, as you can see here, you pick your pitcher of decision. Just say Lopez got the win there. This pitcher took the loss. If anyone was going to get a save, you can assign that as well here, and click save. And now our pitching decisions would be included as well. So if we came in to look at our box scores here, we can take a look at them, and you'll see right here they have our winning and losing pitchers. And this is, again, where you can come in and print a quick box score if you need it any point in the game, right after the game for your coach, something like that. Again, it's under the reports tab, the NCAA box right here. The play-by-play, again, is available if you want to print that as well to look at. Any packed file, XML downloads are needed. You can grab those here as well. You can email the game files to opposing SID. One thing I'll mention, as with all Presto Stat softwares, since the NAIA is on board as an organization with Presto Stats, there's no reason to necessarily share the files with opposing SIDs in the NAIA, because they're always going to be available. Every SID, if you have access to your school, you'll have access to the event information page here that has, so you can come in here at any time, launch the software yourself, or grab the download links for those files here on the right.
So we had a couple more questions come through. What do you enter if a batter is called out for being out of the box?
I guess I'm not super familiar. Let me just take a look here, see if I can. Just unassisted out to the catcher, I guess. I'm not sure if that would even, see if it lets you do that. Yeah, that marks it as a ground out. So, I'm not sure. I guess we could look through to see if there's a specific entry for something like that. But I think, yeah, whoever mentioned that was probably just to put out to the catcher. That's probably the correct way to enter something like that.
That's how it is. I always put 2U INT as an interference thing, but it does the same.
And you can always use BI for batter interference as well. And that's obviously more if, they interfere with the catcher or anything like that, but it might be a situation to use BI as well.
We did have another question about the earned and unearned, and you had showed us earlier that that will pop up a box for you to enter it. So you do still have to keep track of earned and unearned runs in order to enter those as you go along, correct?
Correct. It is. Our system does not make that determination on any input. That is the scorer's decision at all times, whether or not a run is earned or unearned. Well, after an error has been entered, everything else is considered earned. But once an error has been entered in that half of the inning, every sequence, every run moving forward, the system will prompt you to determine whether it was earned or unearned. So that will always be the scorer's decision, how to determine that. And again, like I showed, that can always be edited at any point. Even where was that? Right here. So even now we're back in the bottom half of the inning. Even at this point, usually sometimes after the end of the inning, that's when you can go back and make those adjustments. So you can always edit that, edit the play. Right now it's unearned. We'll just turn it back to an earned run. and save that edit successfully. And now when we look at it, it just shows that they scored, so that'd be considered an earned run at that point.
So you showed us how to update the pitching decisions at the end of the game. Once you have all of your team's information updated in there at the beginning of the game, will those update automatically, or are those more of a manual update as you end the game?
So I assume they're referring to the records at that point.
Correct.
Yeah, so records in baseball, softball, those do need to be manually updated in Presto Stats. So it's just, once these are in here, just come in and you can adjust those as needed, at the end of the game. So yeah, those do need to be updated. Other sports have the button to finalize and update team records. Baseball, softball does not. So you can just do those yourself at any point.
And is that the same thing with the pitching decisions? Like which pitcher won, lost, and saves?
Yeah, I mean, the pitching decisions, it will always be a manual set as well, just like the earned and unearned run, that's always up to the scorer. So those will always be, once a run has been scored at any point in the game, because again, we did this in the bottom of the second inning. So once a team has a lead at any point in the game, you could technically enter a pitching decision.
So is there, within the program, is there a way to make notes as you go through? So say a player has their 5th home run of the season. Is there a box to note that as you enter your play-by-play, or is that something that is more of a general in your game setup?
So yeah, in baseball softball entry, there is not a comment option right now. That's something we could probably certainly get added there for situations like that. Just the ability to add a comment somewhere in a box score, but right now we do not have that option.
Next question is, do you get the option to make a run as unearned after marking a pass ball by the catcher?
Yeah, I believe so. Let's just go ahead and do that. So we'll say they moved up on pass ball. And single to right. There you go. So you do have the option right there. To have our earned run or no. We'll go ahead and say that was not earned. Give them the RBI though. And there you go. So yeah, on a pass ball, it does prompt that as well.
And then in additional to that, are you able to mark an error on foul balls that extend at bats?
That's a good question. So error on like a dropped foul, I guess would be that the question there. I believe you can.
Yes, absolutely. It would be E whoever and then space DF.
Yeah, let's try that there.
And
yep, there we go.
Keeps the batter at bat. So then that run is, if you determine that's an error, that run is automatically unearned if they would ever score. For scoring, if you didn't know that.
Do you have any situational plays that you could show on appeals, or talk us through what it would look like if there was an appeal on a play?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good question there. It's from like the statistical software angle of it. We do not have any, entry for anything like that. It would just really be a matter of, I guess, if player stole and they called him out and it was appealed and they determined he was safe, just a matter of editing that play and making them safe as opposed to out, or vice versa. I guess from just a statistical entry standpoint, I guess I'm not quite sure what they're referencing there, but any plays are always editable. So any sort of appeal or change in a call could be made to a play that's already been entered.
Probably what they're talking about is like if you have a runner on third and they hit a fly ball to left and the defense thinks that the runner left early, it would not be an RLE. So you would go like F7. Technically it'd be F7 space SF because it's technically a sac fly even though they're called out. So I actually it would be F7 whatever, F7 sac fly, but then your base runner would be out like 7-5 space AP for an appeal play is what they're asking.
Okay, yeah, I guess there we go. Thanks for that explanation.
All right, next question. If you set the play as an error, that person scores, then you have to go back and change that error to a hit. Will the system automatically prompt you to change the run to earned?
Yeah, but again, anytime after an error has been entered, you're going to be prompted to, although I guess if you're removing the error on the play and changing it to a hit, you probably wouldn't prompt you for that, but at any time when a run is scored, you can just type in the UE after the sequence for the scoring runner and it will be marked as an unearned run. Otherwise, it'd be considered an earned run.
Next question, is there an option to say that a runner advanced via previous entered error?
Yeah, so like if, we'll just say they reached on a fielding error by the first baseman. This player was already going to be safe. Well, I guess we'll just say they advanced to third on that error. So you can see right there. I think that's kind of what the question was referencing there. We look at the full play-by-play, you can see a little better. Reached on first on fielding error, and this runner advanced to third on that error as well. So that's just a plus to advance bases, and then you just throw an E on at the end to indicate that they advanced on the error specifically.
That actually credits 2 errors. That credits 2 errors to the same person. So you don't have to enter that the runner advanced via the field.
Interesting. Okay.
That shouldn't have credited 2 errors. That should just advance on the error. So there should have been already an error there. So
on Stat Crew, if you type in a lowercase e, it only credits 1 error if you type in error twice. Is that the case for this too?
The case of the lettering shouldn't matter, lowercase or uppercase, but so I guess, Eric, are you saying that that's what happened on that? In fact, let's just edit that and see. Yeah, because I mean, it's not changing the errors in that's showing here. Let's just look. Errors. So we got 2. Okay, so let's just add that back.
Okay, yeah. So it's just the lowercase e thing. That's
yeah, that could very well be what it is. I'm not sure, but yeah, because that shouldn't be adding an extra error.
As long as you don't put a space between the pluses and the E, it will not charge a second error. It'll just say advanced on the error. But if you put it plus space E, first it's going to prompt you for error on who, but then it would charge a second error. But if you go plus E, it will not charge a second error.
All right, we've got a situational one where someone would like to see what it looks like for a sac fly, but the runner tagging leaves early.
Yes, I think that's kind of what that one, I think it may have been David there had mentioned there. So we'll just say 7 sac fly. And I guess we're saying runner left early here. So you have to give the put out somewhere.
It's
And-
not an RLE because that would be an appeal. That would be an appeal play.
Okay, so yeah, and again, I guess that's where you put in. You said it was AP.
Yeah.
There we go. So you can see how it shows it there in the play-by-play out at home on the appeal.
RLE is only a softball thing if a runner leaves early trying to steal a base. That is the only time you would use RLE.
All right, so Neil, can you walk us through loading stat files, what it looks like for people that are Presto users and that may not be Presto users?
So if you have a game where you're playing in non-NAIA schools, basically the game wasn't done in Presto stats, you receive the stat file, you need to upload it. That is just done in the game day CMS here. You just go to your schedule. We'll just kind of walk through every step of it here. So when you're on your schedule page, our long, massive test schedule here, go down to your event, click on the date and time. It'll take you to that event information page we were just on. And then you have the option here to upload a box score. There's 2 buttons. They do the exact same thing. So when you click that, you'll see right here, it gives you the message, hey, these are the files we accept. And you just choose file to browse and import that file. And it'll take you, there's a couple of windows where you're just kind of okaying everything that's in the file. And then once it's saved in the network, that box score is in place for this game and is automatically shared with the NAIA conference. Any Presto member on the Presto network will automatically receive that information.
And then can you walk us through, say there's a neutral site game that somebody is going to be statting, or if it's a tournament and they need access to be able to stat for a team that is not their own?
So yeah, if you need to run Presto stats for a team that's not your own, right now the best way to go about it is to reach out to our client care team, web@prestosports.com. Send us an email, let us know the dates and the schools you'll need access to, and we will set up that temporary access. So then, like you saw here on the schedule option, we have like the Stats 1 and Stats 2 as available teams. This would show every team that you have access to for that sport. So you can go in and manage their schedule and add games as needed if it's a tournament where you're not going to know the matchups ahead of time, add events as needed and run the stat software as if it was your own team.
We have a question on when you enter a score, you mentioned that it will automatically upload to the NAI website and be linked there. Is that also the case for conference websites if they are also an SID help site, or would that be a separate entry?
So yeah, right now there's no connection for stats, scores, information like that between Presto websites, which would be the Presto stat software, and anything on the SID Help platform. So any conference or the NAIA, since it's now on the Presto platform, and any conference on the Presto platform, any schools on the Presto platform for their websites will automatically receive the stat files, as the game is happening and at the end. For SID Helps, that stuff will still need to be uploaded manually, like it had been in the past, through the report scores option.
So kind of jumping back to that neutral site question a little bit, what if one of those neutral teams is an NCAA school?
Same process. We have the ability, we have pretty much every school you could ever imagine in our database. So we can always give access to NCAA schools, any non-NAIA school we can give access to.
Any other questions? Neil, did you have anything else before we close out?
No, I think that was really all I wanted to show. Again, just a reminder from the Presto end, if you ever need to reach out to our support team, we are happy to help and assist with anything. Our email is just web@prestosports.com. Our phone number, 877-778-7382. It's the old stretch number if you're familiar with that. Reach out to us. Right now we're working Monday through Friday, pretty much 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. Once usually 1st of August, we'll start with our weekend coverage as well. So once the school year rolls around and games have started, we'll have coverage 7 days a week during those hours as well. So give us a call in game if anything's happening and you're not sure. So we do get a lot of calls placing a runner on second. We're happy to help in those quick situations, not sure how to do it. Just reach out and we'll be happy to assist.
All right, that looks like it's the end of our questions at this point.
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Pre-game, like lineups that you do pre-game, like how do you get like the stats to appear for broadcasters, you know, for like season stats, cumulative stats, and then also like third game of a series, how do you get series stats, tournament stats to distribute to media? Where you select multiple games?
So yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit there, but so pre-game, once you have your rosters entered into the stat software, once you have starters set, it's going to initiate that initial game file. So from, you know, as a matter of, you know, stats being sent to Stretch or wherever you have set up in the stat partners area, once you have the rosters in place, that initial roster, the initial stat file is generated and pushed, disseminated wherever it needs to go. So that initial file is created as soon as the starters are put in place. As far as like career stats and items like that, like the TRX files, I believe are what they're called there, we do not currently support those in Presto Stats. It's something we've discussed, but right now we do not support those files for baseball, softball. And then for as far as like series stats goes, we don't really have an easy way to generate and view those reports right now. I guess the easiest way to probably do it, under stats, the advanced reports tab, I'm not going to open it since there's so many games here. It'd probably time out on me since there's 200 plus games in this test season. But if you go to this advanced reports and open it, it gives you the ability to look at some different stat reports and customize a date range. You can pick all conference games, all non-conference games, games between these set dates, and look at stat reports for just those set of games. So if you want to look at, you know, a weekend report after a weekend baseball series or something like that, that's probably the way to go in and view those reports. I will say stat reports is one thing that we are kind of always working it to advance and make more robust. So that is something our team is actively addressing across every sport.
Hey, Neil, I have a question for you. Speaking of reports, when you're wrapping up a game and you hit email, you have to email each file separately. It won't let you pick all the files in that?
So when you do that, actually, you have the ability to send, again, you can pick any of them, or this last option will send XML, packed, and PDF to your recipients. So you do have the ability to send all of them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, I just want to remind you all that we did record today's webinar, and we will post it so that you guys can review it whenever you start working through baseball, softball games. So you will have access to that. And if you have any additional questions, as Neil said, reach out to the care team and they'll be able to help you out directly. Thanks all for joining, and we'll see you soon.